Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Social Hotelier podcast with me, Sam Ruttman. In today's episode, I have the privilege of introducing to you the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Client Attraction Pros and the organic traffic educator of Traffic Keys. He's also very active as a keynote speaker circuit, Atiba de Souza. So welcome, Atiba, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. So we have a topic we want to touch on, but which is about hospitality's role in building communities and healing some loneliness. But I think for our audience to get some background, I took the opportunity to look at some of the where you've been interviewed. I understand you have a very long history in your family about entrepreneurship, and it's actually deeply rooted in your family. Could you tell me about your professional background and how it relates to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, my personal professional background is 100% entrepreneurship. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I am the opposite of most people. I've had a job, what people would consider a job, for a combined total of 2 years of my entire life. The rest of it has been an entrepreneur. And, you know, it was one of those things that wasn't required, but expected almost as part of the family. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. I grew up when I was young until they got divorced, watching my parents own restaurants. And then my father went on and did his own businesses after they split, and my mother went on and became a caterer and has been a caterer. And so I grew up in that. Likewise, her father owned a pharmacy in Trinidad, where we're from. And so my grandfather was an entrepreneur. And then his son took over the pharmacy, which is still in our family today. And so it's been, like I said, it wasn't a requirement, but it was almost unexpected. If you have the gene, if you have the bug, that you would be an entrepreneur. And really, it was because the reality of what you could do, it was less about, a lot of people get into business because they want control, right? They leave a job where they have no control and come over to a business and start a business because they want to be the boss and they want to be in control. Whereas for us, it was always about the fact that there is a gift that we can give to the world. There is a group of people that we need to serve. And we had that burning desire inside to serve that group of people. And that's why we became entrepreneurs. That's why we became business owners. Less than just trying to say, oh, I want to be my own boss and have my own control.
Yeah.
So that's what it means to me, and kind of my journey a bit, if you will.
Yeah. So it's really a bigger purpose that you have. In fact, where you grew up as an entrepreneur, the entrepreneurship is just to provide a service to people, and there is a bigger purpose to make them. I can understand that, and that's. I think that really relates to the successful entrepreneurship are in for that long haul game, and they have a bigger purpose, greater purpose in what they do, rather than let's make the maximum revenues or the number count and so on, because it doesn't last very long, because you have ups and downs in your business, as always.
Yeah, but and it gives you the why, right?
Exactly.
Behind why you're doing it, because the revenue and the ups and downs is part of it.
Yeah.
And yes, you've got to deal with that stuff, right? But the why that you deal with it is what keeps you going and keeps you fighting, and having more impact. I tell my staff, 4 years ago, we reached a point where we were making enough money and I was fine. We didn't have to keep growing. But I decided to keep growing because I wanted to have more impact, not even just on our clients, but on our staff. I wanted to affect more people. I wanted to grow a community in my staff of people that we were affecting in a very positive way financially. And so that's why we kept growing. in point of fact, my personal income, even though the company has grown, hasn't grown. My ability to pay more people has.
That's excellent. Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is fascinating way of thinking about that entrepreneurship, and because without a doubt, it's like you tend to also take a focus on the why several times during the lifetime of the entrepreneurship or the business, that what it initially was, and it becomes something even more than it was originally. And that, can you share a little bit of how you see that, how the why has evolved during the life of your business?
Yeah. So that evolves with your values. And your values evolve with maturity as well, right? And you get to different places in your life when you start to realize the different things that are important. When you're young in your 20s and you may not be married, you may not have kids, what you understand about the world is very different than when, say, you're in your 30s and you're married and you have kids and you're raising a family, versus when you're in your 40s or your 50s and now the kids are gone, and now you're looking at, okay, what am I leaving in this world?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And those values mature over time. The challenge is when we don't keep up with the maturity of our own values. When we're in our 40s and we try to live like we're in our 20s and have those values,
Yeah.
right? Or even when we're in our 20s and we try to live like we're in our 40s, because we don't really understand there either. And so for me, that's where it's really been. Okay. Um, and it's interesting because as my values have become less, I would say selfish is the word I will use, is the greater impact we've had, right? I can
Yeah.
tell you, when I was in my 20s, it was all about, hey, how can I be the greatest? Yeah, we're making it, but it was, at the end of the day, you still wanted, you wanted the accolades,
Yeah.
right? And yes, there was success, but it was also short lived
Yeah.
because the values weren't right. And so you
Yeah.
learn through those things over time.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I can relate to that. It's been a long haul for me also, and I can imagine. I mean, if I think about how it was, what my dream was when I started as a receptionist at the hotel, and then I said, well, maybe one day I can be a general manager. Once I reached that role, that's not really enough. I want to learn more. But in fact, you realize the higher up you get, the less you know in many ways, and you have to really check out your values, and also that you cannot even hotels and hospitality in many ways is like a hierarchical system has been for
Mm-hmm.
a long time, and you cannot survive being just a one-man show. You're relying on so many people, and with the
Absolutely.
generation shift of now 2024, that generation who is starting the careers, they're not going to listen to you as they're not going to take whatever you say is for granted. They're going to question you, and how can you deal with that kind of uh, a change in hospitality is what I'm hearing quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think the reality there is we've got to grow up and realize that the world changes.
Yep.
Okay. And yes, the kids today are questioning things. And yes, they're asking why a lot. And yes, they're sometimes even thinking they know better. Here are some truths though. Okay. The fundamental of human existence is still human existence. Those things don't change. They dress different, right? The old saying, you could put a different dress on the pig, it's still a pig. Um, I'm not calling humans pigs, but my point here is
Yes.
we're still dealing with humans
Yeah.
and understanding not, and we deal with the fruit of what these kids are doing when they're
Exactly.
asking, oh, you're too into da, 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 da. And we're dealing with the fruit of it versus the root and trying to understand what is it that they're really trying to get at. Because when we do that, we start to recognize they're doing the same thing we did when we were their age. They're just doing it differently. And so, in other words, it's still the same pig. It's just a different dress.
Yeah.
And so and that's what I try to impress upon people is like, once you start to get past the dressing on the pig and start to actually see what's going on, what is it that this human is really trying to get to? What are they trying to understand? And you start to make that crosswalk and deal with what the root is, then that's how, now getting into community,
Yep.
that's how we can actually start to build relationship, which creates community. You see, in reality, what this younger generation is doing is forcing us to actually display what our core values are, versus just saying, just trust me, this is the way it's supposed to be. They
Yeah.
want to align with that, and we have to be willing to share that and not realize it's a threat, but it's actually an invitation.
Yeah. So true. Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this hospitality, and as you can call it as an industry. I mean, it covers a lot of aspects of it, but and also the how can this industry we call hospitality industry contribute to fostering a sense of community. Well, it can be in urban environments, or it cannot. It doesn't have to be in urban only, but can also be in somewhere else, and where individuals. I mean, particularly, I think people in the urban environments often feel isolated, and they are not feeling part of anything. And there's a sense of when you go to a restaurant or a bar and you see some lonely people there drinking, and then they need somebody to have a chat with. And that's how we see many times the stereotype that people are being lonely, but that's more to it. But how do you see the industry, as we call it, the hospitality, or the hotels and restaurants and cafes, can
Yeah.
contribute to fostering a sense of community? What should they think about, and how should the antennas be out there to sense the urgent need, where people feel quite lonely, but they can feel part of something else?
Yeah. It's a great question and great topic for us to discuss. And, you know, I guess one of the pros, one of the benefits that I've had in my life is growing up in the catering industry with my mother. And, you know, my mother never considered herself a caterer in terms of, I'm here to provide food. It was, everything we do is about a celebration, and there are memories. And so it was always about, how do we capture the celebration and the memories and the moment of this? And how is it what we do enhances that? So it's not just, oh, I put food on a plate and I put it on a table, right? And I think therein lies the challenge of what has happened in the hospitality industry, that it's become very transactional.
That's true.
Okay. It's become extremely, extremely transactional. Let me give you an example. So I was telling you before we got on, I just got back. I've been gone for 10 days. I was in California with my daughter doing college tours, which was a ton of fun. And we went to a restaurant. Okay. And we're at a restaurant, and we were having a great meal, by the way, at this restaurant. And there's something that restaurants do here. I don't know if they do them in your side of the world, but they do them here, where the manager takes time to walk around and go to different tables. How is everything? And then they walk away, right? Well, my daughter and I are clearly in an intense conversation, and the manager comes to ask that question, breaking our conversation, and walks away.
Yeah.
And it's like the emotional intelligence of that moment is lacking. On top of the fact that there's 0 point in what you did either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the combination of the two is absolutely asinine to me. But this is what has happened because it's now, in order to keep our guests happy and in order to get a good NPS score or a review, a manager needs to go and check on and ask, is the guest having a good time? Okay, we did it. Check. It's a transaction.
Yeah.
Versus understanding, why are they here? Right? Why do people come to our restaurant? Okay.
Yeah.
What's going on? And then approaching in that manner, or not approaching when you realize we're in an intense conversation.
That
Okay.
that exactly takes the skill of having that emotional intelligence and sensing the moment when you should approach and when you should stay away and just observe, and maybe with the eye contact, friendly nod or whatever, that you have made some sort of connection. Doesn't have to be a word. It can be just a friendly smile and then nod, and then you get their attention, I'm sure, but it's not meant to be interrupting. But this is very common. We don't see it here in Europe so much. But I remember from US, I was told it was like a script.
Yes.
Have we met your expectations? And then we walk away. We don't even listen to what the answer is.
Said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's a microcosm
Yeah.
example of a macro issue that's plaguing the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
Okay. How often do you go to a hotel just for the sake of going to a hotel?
Yeah.
Right.
I go very often, and I love the vibe and the sense, but I don't know how many people are making it as a habit. But it's a very good thing to do. Just to take a look and get the feel and sense the place, because you can actually feel if the hotel is a friendly place to visit.
But if you're in a foreign place visiting, you don't have the time to quote unquote scout the hotel in that way.
No,
but
that's true.
But if you're booking and if you're staying at a hotel, you're here for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And how do we build community around it? How do we help and understand in that? I'll give you another example. I love that we're having this after my week in California. And so I did not realize that Comic-Con was the same week we were in San Diego. And this is the big Comic-Con in San Diego. I mean, tens of thousands of people all dressed in whatever, right? My daughter wanted to go to a particular sushi restaurant in San Diego that she'd been to before that had this one sushi roll that she absolutely loved. She said, I'm going to San Diego, and if nothing else, we got to go to that sushi restaurant. Now, here was the fun part. We couldn't remember the name of the restaurant. So it took us a while to even find it. And then we found it, and we went in, and they didn't have her roll. And they didn't have her roll because they said, for Comic-Con this week, we've changed the menu to represent Comic-Con.
Oh.
Fantastic. You've understood what's going on, and you're inviting the community in, and you're being a part of it, versus the hotel. The hotel, on the other hand, was, hey, everything's a little bit behind, and you're going to have to check out early because Comic-Con and we're overbooked.
Yeah.
Right? One made me feel good about, even though I wasn't there for Comic-Con, even though she couldn't get what she wanted, you still felt good about what they did. Like, you care about what's going on. The other one made me feel what?
Yeah, exactly.
In both cases, I didn't get what I wanted. But one I at least respected. The other one I felt like crap.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you see community events like these that you mentioned, organized by, for instance, hotels and restaurants? What role? I mean, you mentioned the example, but they play a role in bringing people together and then combating social isolation. Is this
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit
Yes,
about that from how you see that?
absolutely. And so it's incumbent upon everyone in the hospitality industry to recognize that they have a role in their local area. And sure, a lot of times when we think hospitality, we think tourism. And so we think people coming in from outside. But even if tourism is a big part of what you do, there is still a large percentage of people locally that support, that are a part of, that make up. Okay. Because here's this: when last year I went to Cabo for the first time. When I got to Cabo, I got off the plane, and every single person that I talked to in the airport that I had to interact with, customs included, I asked them, where do you take your family to eat? I don't want to know the tourist places. I want to know where you and your family go on a Friday night or a Thursday night to eat. That's where I want to go.
Yeah.
Right? And I got a list. And by the end of it all, 3 or 4 people had mentioned 2 or 3 of the same places. Guess where I went?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you see, that happens because those restaurants have done a great job of infusing themselves within the community. Yes, they have great food. Yes, they have great ambiance and that type of thing. But it's when they take that next step of really understanding and serving their community, understanding what's going on in their community, and inviting the community to be a part of what they do, that the community then responds with, this is one of my favorite places to be. Okay. Now, it doesn't have to be grandiose. It could be as simple as knowing that the community loves karaoke. And so you have a Thursday karaoke night.
Yeah.
Okay. So it can still be profitable. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people miss, is that they feel like, in order to do this, it's volunteer work and we're going to lose money. And again, when that's all you're thinking about, that's all you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So I think there's a major opportunity for the industry to help with loneliness.
Sure. Sure. Then when it comes into like how people attend before they go on a trip, they tend to look at what's happening on popular websites or YouTube, TikTok, and so on. How can these businesses effectively leverage the technology to create virtual communities without compromising the essence of physical social interaction? And in fact, that you're actually prepping people to an excitement before they arrive to their place.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's my wheelhouse.
I'm glad I asked you.
So honestly, I think it's great. Honestly, I think it's where they should be, right? Because you want to be able to create online that sense of what it's like to be in your property, to be with your people, to be around, so people understand what they want. Because quite honestly, it may not be what they want. Here's a great example. Some years ago, I needed to book a hotel room, and did the search, found a hotel. It was rated well, what have you. It was a new hotel brand. There wasn't a lot of other information on it other than a star rating, and so I went ahead and booked it. It was one of the worst hotel experiences I've ever had, because it's a hotel designed for fitness enthusiasts. So the bed was a Murphy bed in the wall.
Oh, no.
It actually had a mini gym in the room instead of like a seating area. It was completely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is that great for somebody? Yes. Me? No. But if you had created content around that and shown me your experience beforehand, then I would have known you're not the brand for me.
Yep.
Okay. Instead, what has happened is I end up there
And now I tell everybody, don't go stay there. Years later, I mean, it's almost 10 years later, I still tell people, I'm telling them, don't go stay there.
Yeah, it's strong memory from that time.
But if you had told me up front and created the experience up front where I could see what it's like and feel what it's like to be part of your community, to be one of your people, I would have known I'm not one of your people.
Yeah. What are the ways you think that, I mean, of course, we are talking legacy brands and hotel chains, they have their own departments who are even in-house department. But let's say there's an independent hotel that are want to do something. And for instance, they are located in a community popular destination or popular tourist destination, and they want to be more visible on, and particularly going to the online and able to have a presence, and also to show the true who they are, and also to entice the people who actually are right for that hotel or who they're catering to. What are the steps they should take to, the kind of the baby steps to get started, so they don't get overwhelmed and try to do too much and maybe not able and create the flop?
Yeah, so I think they're actually in a much better place than the big brands, because the big brands have all the bureaucracy and all of the crap that they have to go through.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas if you're a smaller brand, a one-off hotel, maybe you only have a couple locations in a destination, what have you, you're in a place where, if I were you, where I would start is, why are people coming to this destination? Not my hotel, but this destination. What do people come here for? Okay. Understanding that, then go out and actually start as the hotel creating content about that. Here's another industry where we see that happening and working really well: real estate.
Yeah.
Realtors have learned, if we talk about the schools in a certain neighborhood, that's what parents want to know before they move into the neighborhood. Okay. When someone is thinking about coming to your destination, they want to know, where am I going to go? What am I going to be able to do? And so if you're there to help educate them on that and show them how you educate, and then link that back to the hotel, okay, and things you do at the hotel or the vibe of your hotel, that's now how you're introducing them based on something that they care about, what they want, and then bringing in what you know and showing them, this is how we can serve you.
No, that's excellent. I mean, really shows that you're helping the potential customers to understand the destination and what they're looking for, and then only after that you kind of bring them into. It's actually natural to those people, once they're getting the information they want, that it's natural that they may consider the hotel, because you have done something for them already before their arrival.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Now, I know someone's listening to this and they're going to say, yeah, but Atiba, somebody else has already done that travel blog and they've already talked about this thing or the other.
Yeah.
And that's true. You're right. Someone else already has. And guess what? They didn't like them, which is why they want to listen to you. And therein lies the point, again, coming back to community. Your brand is designed to serve a certain community of people. Not everyone who's coming to your destination, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a restaurant, wherever you are in hospitality, not everyone is your customer. Only a subset of those people are your customers, your ideal customers. And your ideal customers, they actually want to hear from you. They're actually going to be attracted to you and repelled by someone else. So yes, someone else may have already created this content talking about whatever attractions are at your destination or what have you. That's true. But your ideal customer wants to hear it from you, not from them.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the same, in a way, a similar story can be, when you tell it, it's going to be very different to what somebody else told you. You always put
Absolutely.
your own spin and with your own spices, if you will, that makes it still personal. So it's not, the same story is never told in a way that everybody hears the same way. So it definitely is not to be scared about. How do you feel about the that in the video or in the live video or and so on, that you start to see the people, the staff themselves there, or you start to see who are becoming your ambassadors, or you even see the manager that is coming in front of the camera. So do you see that as that you can personalize this opportunity, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a major plus.
Okay.
It's a major plus because people want to connect with people, right? Which then leads to the question of, well, but what if so-and-so is no longer here? Well, guess what? People also understand that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And that's okay. Okay. It doesn't mean that you have to go back and cut them out of all the videos because they're no longer with you, or that.
Yeah.
None of that is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But the reality is people want to connect with people. And when people show up and they see someone that they feel like they know, that is actually called a parasocial relationship. There's actually a technical term for it, right? And that parasocial relationship is where I feel like I know you, but you don't have a clue who I am. And you feel like I feel like I know you because I've seen you and I've experienced you, right? And so even if it's just somebody in the background, if it's someone, a wait staff working in the background who realizes they're on camera, and every time they do, they make a funny face, right? Then people are going to show up, see that waiter or wait staff, and when they see him, they'll make the funny face back at him.
Yeah.
That's the parasocial relationship dynamic at work.
I love that, because the reason I bring it up is that 9 times out of 10, when you see a promotional video of hotels, they're using models, beautiful models who are there, or you have a social media influencer who just makes it to create this thing because they're having millions of followers. But in reality, you'll never see that influencer at the hotel when you go there. So that's why I thought that I really glad you brought that up, that the people who are there are the ones who's going to be the ambassadors of the place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not at all saying you can't use an influencer. I'm just saying make sure you use real people too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So for example, I can't think of who's big enough now. George Clooney is the only name coming to mind. Okay. Let's say George Clooney was in your video and George Clooney was checking at the front desk, right? And dealing with the concierge at the front desk, or George Clooney was getting his car valeted, right? And now you pull up, and that same valet and that same front desk attendant is the one checking you in. That's instant conversation. What was it like working with George Clooney?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And look, it's silly, but people will do it. People will say, my car was parked by the same valet that parked George Clooney's.
That's special. Yeah.
Now, does it actually mean anything in the real world? No, but it means something to them in that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, we had a situation where there was a movie actor visiting Finland on his private visit, and he was in Helsinki, and then after that he went to a small town about half an hour drive from Helsinki. He went to a restaurant, and so he was recognized. Now he's been around so long that he didn't took any offense that people want to have pictures of him. But what happened with that restaurant, and restaurant wasn't looking for publicity. It was just that the spur of the moment that he was seen and there was a picture taken. Okay, it went into the tabloids. Immediately the restaurant and the staff who was in the selfie with the actor was recognized. So when people went to the restaurant, and in fact we walked by the restaurant, and you see a familiar face. It was not the actor, but it was the staff who was in the selfie, and it kind of made that's a nice touch. At least you noticed something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'd like to move into a little bit, but we have people who are what we call the vulnerable population. That's elderly, or those who may have some mental challenges. And how can what we call the resorts or hotels and and hospitality services be tailored better to serve those people who are maybe not want to be recognized because they are not sort of what we are used to, the, so to speak, the healthy people, or that's a very bad term, but I would call like elderly who have mental challenges. How can we as an industry help to reduce that loneliness? Is there something we should be involved with at all?
Yeah. So that's always a really good question, and it's always a tough one
Yeah.
because there are two sides to this. There's the side of what you can see and the side of what you can't see.
Yeah.
Okay. And I hate to say it, I don't have an answer for the side that you can't see. So years and years ago, I was involved with sensitivity training for police officers. Okay. And one of the major components there was dealing with people who have mental illness, because you don't know. You can't see it. And so if someone is dealing with a mental illness and a cop approached them and said, hey, whatever, you're seeming suspicious, hands up, and they don't have the faculty, right? It looks like they're being disobedient and aggressive. And then how does the cop respond? And so we struggled with that, and we still struggle with that.
Yeah.
And in the hospitality industry, it's no different. There's still that struggle with what you cannot see. What I can say on that side is it's incumbent upon us to take a moment and ask and consider and give grace. Okay? Especially with the things that we can't see. Now, on the side of what we can see, with the elderly or physically handicapped and disabled individuals, then it's a matter of creating environments that are, I don't want to use the word sensitive, but because that's the wrong word. Don't know what the right word is. It's not coming to me at the moment, but basically, creating environments where they can still feel comfortable, where you can still serve them at a high level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Without, and here's the other side, without compromising other guests who are there as well, because that's honestly where I think a lot of the imbalance starts to come from. Because if I put into place a policy and a way that we in our environment work with someone who is physically disabled, and I care for this person in a way that's physically disabled, the thing that I cannot control is how another guest responds. Right? And this is as simple as someone's physically disabled and they're at the counter to check in, and it's taking them longer, and the person behind has to go to the bathroom and doesn't understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So I'm not even saying people being malicious and evil, just simple.
Yeah.
It's hard.
We have there's a restaurant where I go quite often for lunch. It's a mostly local from Helsinki. You will see it's a popular restaurant in the sense that you don't see so many tourists going there, and I think the average age is like 60 to 80 up. I mean, because it's local comfort food, what you used to get the home cooked. And you have guests there who come in there every day. I mean, every time I go there, I see the same person. He is already aged. His legs doesn't hold anymore, but he's the regular. But they have learned to sense his moods. They have learned to sense how he feels at the moment, and they are cleverly able to make sure that he's comfortable and also to make sure that people around him are comfortable. And I think that is, I have rarely seen the kind of level of care and skill from in a restaurant that I see in that restaurant because of that. And if you come as a first-time visitor and you're wondering why did this person or the guest get so annoyed he starts screaming? I mean, because that's sometimes his blood pressure went up and he was just unhappy about something. But the staff was excellent in calming him down in a very moment. And he's a regular guest. I mean, in some places they would say, well, they will kick him out. They will not allow him to stay.
Right.
But what they do is that they understand how to deal with persons. And that takes a great deal of skill and it takes of years of experience to handle those type of things. And I thought I mentioned that as an example of how I've seen it happening.
No, absolutely. And I think you should find the owner of that restaurant and get him on your show.
Yeah.
That's a topic that needs to be discussed because they may have figured out something that needs to be bottled and taught to others.
Well, thank you for the tip. I think I'll give him a call.
Yes, I think you should. Yeah, let me know when you do. I want to hear that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Great. Well, Atiba, it has been a great discussion, and I'm so happy that you took the time, and I'm more happy about we went off script, which is actually the even better part, that we had a sort of a conversation about things. But I have a couple of questions before we wrap up. And one question is that, which I'd like to ask all my guests, besides what we have talked about, what are the trends that you see in hospitality in from where you are, and that hoteliers should take note of? Now, what are the things that you notice that people that are happening in the industry in your areas, or that you have seen?
Yeah, and I think the tone of this conversation has kind of underscored what I've seen and where things are going, and that is community, and community on all levels. So sometimes it's a micro community, right? Your job is fostering community, whether it's 4 people who came into a restaurant to have a dinner, or whether you're having 300 people in your banquet hall at your hotel and a 5-day event that's hosting. There's community that's happening, and everyone is looking to create community. And for those of us in the hospitality industry in any way, shape, or form, as we learn how to communicate that we can help you foster to grow and build a community that you're looking to grow and build, we will have more and more people coming to us looking for us, because that's where everyone is going. We're on a crash course of recognizing we need more community, not less.
Very well put, Atiba. Thank you very much. And lastly, if people are interested to find out more about your activities, how can they reach you and how can they do so?
Yeah, the best thing to do is to go to meetatiba.com. That's meet, A-T-I, B as in boy, A, my first name.com. That'll take you directly to my LinkedIn. When you get there, hit the connect button. Tell me you saw me here on the show. Let's chat one-on-one.
Well, Atiba, it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much again. I had a great time with you, so thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.